You've woken up early. You've had the green smoothie. You've done the 10-minute walk, taken the vitamins, gone to bed on time, and you still feel tired by 3 p.m. Still feel foggy. Still feel like your body isn't listening to you anymore. Here's the thing nobody tells you. It's not that you're doing the wrong things. It's that you're doing the right things in the wrong order and missing the one habit that makes all the others actually work. Most people think health is about addition. Add a supplement, add a workout, add another rule to follow. But your cells don't work that way. I know, that sounds strange. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Every day, your body faces a choice at the cellular level. Build new things, or clean up old things. Grow, or repair. Most people spend their entire day telling their body to grow, eating frequently, snacking healthy, never really stopping. And here's the part nobody talks about. A body that, always building, never gets the chance to clean. In 2016, a Japanese biologist named Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize for figuring out exactly how that cleanup process works. He called it autophagy, your cells literally eating their own broken parts. Think of your body like a construction site. If the crew never stops pouring new concrete, nobody ever hauls away the rubble. Eventually the site is just buried in its own debris. That's what's happening inside you. Quietly, every single day you skip the cleanup window. Not because you lack discipline, because nobody ever told you the window exists. Researchers at the Salk Institute have spent years mapping when this cleanup switch turns on and when it slams shut. And here's where it gets counterintuitive. The switch isn't controlled by what you eat. It's controlled by a single hormone-sensing pathway called mTOR and a second one working against it called AMPK. One tells your cells to build. The other tells them to clean. Most people flip that switch backwards without ever knowing it exists. They eat the moment they wake up. They snack between meals to keep energy up. They believe more input equals more health. But every time you eat, mTOR goes up. And every time mTOR goes up, autophagy, the cleanup, shuts down. Your body wasn't broken. It was following instructions you didn't know you were giving it. This was never your fault. But here's what happened when researchers tracked people who understood this pathway versus people who didn't. What happened next surprised even the scientists studying it. Part 2 Collier. The people who understood the mTOR-AMPK switch weren't doing more. They were doing less, at the right moments, and their bodies responded like they'd found a setting they didn't know existed. Here's the villain hiding in plain sight. It's not sugar, it's not carbs, it's timing. Specifically, it's grazing. The habit of eating small amounts constantly throughout the day. Every single bite, even a healthy one, spikes insulin and keeps mTOR switched on. Which means the cleanup crew never clocks in. And this is where it gets dark. Chronically elevated insulin doesn't just block autophagy, it keeps cortisol elevated too, which is why so many healthy eaters still feel wired, tired, and inflamed. Here's what changes everything. Morning. Delay your first meal by at least 90 minutes after waking. Black coffee or water is fine. It won't spike insulin. This extends your overnight autophagy window, letting your cells finish the cleanup they started while you slept. Midday. Eat your largest, most protein-rich meal here. Protein triggers mTOR on purpose. This is when you want to build, not clean. Think eggs, fish, legumes. Evening. Stop eating at least 3 hours before bed. This is the single biggest lever. It gives your body a real fasting window overnight. When AMPK, the cleanup pathway, gets its longest uninterrupted run. None of these steps work alone. Delaying breakfast without an early dinner barely moves the needle. Eating clean all day but snacking at 9 p.m. resets the whole cycle back to zero. That's the blind spot. Clean first, rebuild second. Repeat. Stack these 3 windows consistently, and something remarkable happens. The cleanup process compounds. Each cycle clears out slightly more than the last. Your cells don't just survive the day, they come back stronger for the next one. This was never about willpower. It was about giving your biology the window it's been asking for the whole time. And there's one more pathway we haven't touched yet. One connected to a molecule called NAD+, and why it quietly declines with age, making this entire cleanup process harder every year you wait. You've mastered the fasting window. You've stopped grazing. You're finally giving your cells the cleanup time they've been begging for. So why does the improvement feel smaller than it should? Why does a 45-year-old doing everything right still recover slower than a 25-year-old doing everything wrong? Here's the part nobody talks about. The cleanup system you just built isn't running on willpower. It's running on a fuel source, and that fuel is disappearing whether you fast or not. I know, that sounds unfair. Stay with me, because this changes everything. Every cleanup process in your body, every repair job, every energy transaction inside your cells runs through one molecule. It's called NAD+. Think of NAD+, like the electricity in that construction site from before. You can have the best crew in the world, you can have the perfect blueprint, but if the power keeps browning out, the work slows down no matter how hard everyone's trying. Here's the critical thing to understand. NAD+ doesn't just help run autophagy, it powers the enzymes that carry out the cleanup. Without enough of it, the switch can flip to clean, and barely anything happens. And here's where it gets counterintuitive. Your NAD+ levels don't drop because of something you did wrong. They drop because of something built into you. Age. Researchers at Harvard, working with a class of proteins called sirtuins, found that NAD+ levels can fall by more than half between your 20s and your 50s, quietly, without symptoms, without warning. Elizabeth Blackburn's Nobel-winning work on telomeres showed something similar happening in parallel. The protective caps on your DNA wearing down with each division, tightly linked to how well your cells can repair themselves. 2 systems, both running low, both invisible, until the effects show up as fatigue, slower healing, foggier thinking. This was never a discipline problem. It was a resource problem. Part 2. Here's what happened when researchers looked at what actually restores NAD+. Because it's not what most supplement companies are selling you. Here's the villain hiding in this story. It's chronic, low-grade cellular stress, the kind caused by poor sleep, constant blue light exposure late at night, and alcohol. Each of these forces your cells to burn through NAD+ faster, just to manage the damage, leaving even less available for repair. The surprising part is this. Your body already makes NAD+ from a precursor called NMN, found naturally in small amounts in foods like broccoli and edamame, but production slows dramatically with age, which is why timing and support matter more than people realize. Here's what changes everything. Morning. Get 10 minutes of direct sunlight within an hour of waking. This anchors your circadian rhythm, and a stable rhythm directly supports steady NAD+ production through the day. Midday. Include NAD+ precursor-rich foods in your protein-focused meal, edamame, mushrooms, or a small serving of dairy. Pairing them with your biggest meal means they're used for building, not wasted. Evening, cut alcohol and screens at least 2 hours before sleep. Both drain NAD+ overnight, right when your cells need it most for repair. None of this replaces the fasting window you already built. It fuels it. That's the blind spot. A clean cell with no power still can't do the work. Stack sunlight, precursor-rich food, and protected sleep on top of your fasting rhythm. And the compounding effect isn't linear, it's exponential. Each cycle restores a little more capacity than the last. This was never about aging faster or slower than someone else. It was about how much power your cells have to do the job you're finally giving them. And there's one more piece we haven't touched. A stress hormone that, left unmanaged, can undo every single one of these gains overnight. You've fixed the timing, you've restored the fuel, and there are still mornings you wake up exhausted before the day has even started. Like something drained the tank while you were asleep. Here's the part nobody talks about. You can do everything right. The fasting window, the sunlight, the NAD+ rich foods, and one hormone can quietly undo all of it overnight. I know, that sounds discouraging. Stay with me, because this changes everything. That hormone is cortisol. Think of cortisol like the site foreman from that same construction project. In small, controlled doses, he's essential. He wakes the crew up, gets them moving, keeps things on schedule. But when the foreman never clocks out, when he's yelling instructions at 2 a.m., the whole site stays in emergency mode. Nobody sleeps. Nothing gets repaired. The cleanup crew you finally trained never gets called in. Here's the critical thing to understand. Cortisol and NAD+ are in a constant push and pull. Chronically elevated cortisol forces your cells to spend NAD+ managing stress instead of using it for repair, the exact resource you just spent 2 videos rebuilding. Researchers at Stanford studying chronic stress physiology found that people with consistently elevated evening cortisol showed measurably reduced deep sleep, the exact window where most cellular repair happens. And here's where it gets counterintuitive. The biggest driver of elevated evening cortisol isn't caffeine, and it isn't work stress. It's an irregular wake time. Most people think sleep quality is about bedtime. It's actually anchored by wake time. Your body's internal clock resets cortisol, rhythm based on when you get up, not when you go down. This was never a willpower problem. It was a rhythm problem. Next type. Here's what happened when researchers tracked people who fixed their wake time versus people who only focused on bedtime. Here's the villain hiding in this one. It's the weekend catch-up, sleep-in, sleeping 2 or 3 hours later on Saturday and Sunday. It feels like recovery. Biologically, it's a mini jet lag, shifting your cortisol rhythm just enough to undo a week of consistency. The surprising part is this. A single inconsistent wake time can blunt your cortisol rhythm for reet, quietly working against the fasting window, and NAD+ support they've already built. Here's what changes everything. Morning. Wake at the same time every day, weekends included, within a 30-minute window. This is the single strongest lever for stabilizing cortisol's daily rhythm. Midday. Get a short burst of movement, a brisk 10-minute walk. This helps metabolize circulating cortisol before it can accumulate into the evening. Evening. Dim household lights starting 2 hours before bed. Bright evening light directly delays cortisol's natural decline, keeping the foreman on site long after the work should have stopped. None of this replaces your fasting window or your NAD+ habits. It protects them. That's the blind spot. You can build the perfect system and still have one variable quietly draining it every night. Stack a stable wake time on top of everything else, and the compounding effect reaches every other system you've already built. Deeper cleanup, more available fuel, faster repair. This was never about fixing one thing. It was about protecting the whole system you've already built. And there's one more layer underneath all of this. Why some people's cells age almost a decade slower than their actual birthday, and the one marker doctors are finally starting to test for.